Hello again, my name is Vittorio and we're going through a brief series of looking at the new art movement Intentism and looking at the ideas of intentionality surrounding that. We've had a brief overview of the history behind the ideas of intentionality. We looked at some main figures and players in this, and we're looking at where do we find meaning in the work. We've looked at it could be in the work itself, it could be in the audience, or it could be in the intention of the creator. And we looked at last time that meaning could be found in the work, and we said not entirely. And we looked at work as in literature. And today we're going to be looking at the visual arts. We're going to analyse whether the new critics were right that meaning is always found in the work, the visual arts. And we're going to look at two main areas. We're going to look at colours, and we're going to be looking at shapes and gestures. If new criticism is a little optimistic that meaning can be understood just from text, because as we said last time, language is arbitrary and constantly changing and vulnerable to flux, what about the visual arts? Well, surely if I paint a hand, that's going to be a hand in every culture. If I paint a blue sky, we will all understand the sky to be generally blue. Well, it's certainly less arbitrary than words and literature, but I think we'll find it's more ambiguous than you might think. I suppose most of the visual arts can be distilled down to these two areas. Firstly, colour, and secondly, shape and gestures. Well, let's first of all have a look at colour. Red. Well, red, more universally, can be seen as to do with speed, passion, love, blood and fire. So, okay, that's interesting, because that would suggest that the new critics are possibly right. We can see in red, we can see things that we universally understand, which would then seem to contradict or confuse some of the ideas of postmodernism, that we can read anything into these things. What I'm going to be doing with the colour, I'm going to be suggesting that both positions are perfect. We can suggest that there are some static, stable-ish meanings of colour. That would cast some questions about postmodernism, that we can deconstruct everything. However, there are some varied meanings in various cultures, which would then question the new critic's idea that meaning is perfectly found in the work. So neither holds perfectly true. Okay, so we said red can be speed, passion, love, blood, fire. However, let's have a look on the slide here. Red can also be associated in China with celebration and lust, in India with purity, in Eastern cultures joy when combined with white, with Russia with beautiful, in India a soldier, in South Africa mourning. So, consequently, an abstract image in red may be interpreted very differently in South Africa, mourning, compared with China, celebration and love, very different. Blue. Well, again, it's not purely arbitrary, so I don't think we can deconstruct it completely, like the postmodernists would say. Calm, sea, water, all I'd say would be consistent throughout cultures, but does blue, can we understand the text, the blues mean something very specific and singular, like the new critics would say? Again, I would say there's problems with that too. So again, there are problems in both sides, new criticism and postmodernism, because it can be associated in China with immortality. In Colombia, I don't know if you can read this slide, it's not as clear as the others, it can be associated with soap. With the Jews, with holiness. In the US and Europe, with sadness. With Hindus, the colour of Krishna. In Iran, with mourning. So again, an image may be associated with being melancholy in the US. The amount of song, particularly through maybe jazz and that kind of genre, to do with the blues. I have the blues and being melancholy. So it could be to do with melancholy qualities in the US, but holiness in Israel. Next, green. Again, green can't be fully deconstructed, but it does have varied meanings. Nature, the environment, money and envy, I would say, predominantly are consistent with most cultures. However, China, green hat to mean a man's wife is cheating. In India, it's the colour of Islam. In Ireland, it has religious and patriotic significance. And in some tropical countries, it suggests danger. So, a green image may be associated, interestingly, with Islam in India, and yet Roman Catholicism in Ireland. Let's have a look at white. Same thing. Neither new critics nor the postmodernists seem to have the truth claim, or the claim of saying that their philosophical stance works completely. There are certain associations with white that seem to be across the cultural, different cultures and different nationalities, but there are certain others that seem to be very varied. Well, purity and winter and spirituality seem to be quite commonplace. However, in Eastern cultures it represents death. In the US and Europe, purity, and in China, age, autumn, age again, that's my mistake then, and misfortune. Therefore, white representing purity and all things vaginal in the US and Europe may be associated with death in Eastern cultures. Okay, let's have a look now at the second thing. We're going to be having a look at shapes and after that gestures. Let's have a look at shapes. Now again, you think, well, surely shapes are more consistent. They are less arbitrary than language. Well, let's have a look at an example here. The swastika symbol. Can shapes have different significances or associations to different people? What's the first thing, if you have a look at this for a second, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you see this symbol? Well, I'm sure we can probably all guess what it is in most of our minds. There you go, a Nazi rally of 1933. Perhaps National Socialism came into your mind. This is probably our primary association. However, if this symbol is found in a work of art, can we be certain that it symbolises Nazism? Have a look at the Buddha's chest there. Ring any bells? It's very similar, isn't it? Swastika, the seal on the Buddha's heart. Yes, the symbol has been mirrored, if you've noticed that, well done, on the chest of the Buddha, and it still carries the same basic design. What does this symbol represent in Buddhism? It represents nirvana, the state of being free from suffering. So, a work of art displaying this symbol might represent all that is associated, the violence, the suffering, the pain with National Socialism, or the freedom from suffering with nirvana. The same symbol can be found in many other places with a wide variety of associations. If we just read these out quickly, it can be a sacred symbol in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism and Shamanism. It's found in many Buddhist and Hindu temples. It's found in ancient Greek coins, clothing and architecture. Ancient Armenians symbolise the sun by the swastika. Baltic art symbolises the god of thunder. Slavic culture during the Renaissance decorated Easter eggs with a swastika. Churches sometimes have it, Freemasonry, and again obviously Nazism. So again, this questions the new criticism position that the word alone is the sole place to find a fixed, settled meaning. Let's have a look at another symbol. What does that represent? That's a cross, isn't it? What does it represent? Well, if you've been influenced or are interested in Western ideas, then perhaps your first association would be Christ's substitutionary death on the cross. Look at that, the Egyptian ant. Distinguishable from the cross, you can see them quite clear there, I'm sure, by a loop at the top. The ant is known as the key of life and was Egyptian hieroglyphic character for eternal life. And don't forget, the Roman cross was an instrument of death. So, yes, that symbolises eternal life, which I suppose in many ways Christ's death does as well. But the cross itself, in Roman times, was the worst instrument of death. Roman citizens weren't allowed to be martyred or be killed by the cross because it thought it was being too horrific. instrument of death, but here it's eternal life. Moreover, there you go, David Beckham, fashion and sexuality. Nowadays, a cross has become a common fashion accessory, and it's often complementing overtly sexual dress. Lastly then, for this particular session, let's have a look at gestures. Surely gestures have some kind of commonality. We can agree what they mean. It's another common element of art, particularly figurative work, of course. Think of the raised index finger at Leonardo's The Last Supper and St. John the Baptist. Can we know from the work alone, and not from the artist's biography, and not from the time and place of its creation, what a gesture, for example, the gesture that Leonardo da Vinci would have in The Last Supper and St. John the Baptist, can we know exactly what that means, just from the work alone? This gesture represents okay in many countries. However, in Brazil and Germany, it refers to anal sex and is considered obscene. In Japan, it signifies money. In France, it means zero or worthless. And this is just one example. I pulled out one that's a very well-known one, but it's just one example of many gestures, I would say, including Leonardo da Vinci. I don't believe that the raising the index finger in those two paintings, if you don't have a look at what that represented in his time, his day, society, when he was thinking, when he was intending his painting, I don't think you can know for certain what that gesture means. There are other gestures, including hands, head and feet, that even today mean a multitude of things. We'll leave it there again. Thank you for listening. And next week we're going to be having a look at some case studies. Thank you very much.